I don't know what to think for Oklahoma. I think they end up being 8-4, 9-3, and I think that is a successful year. If they go 9-3, depending on who they beat, I think they should make the college football playoff. Y'all want to talk about Bryce Underwood, the man that originally was an LSU Tiger, $10 million later from Barstool Sports, or we know the direct correlation on how he got to Michigan. At the end of the day, he is a Michigan Wolverine. Bryce Underwood, 5-star quarterback, seen as the savior in Ann Arbor. The pivot to Ann Arbor completely shattered the college football world. But what are the expectations? Just in year one, take it as a vacuum of just this season. What is the expectations for Bryce Underwood? I struggle to find a clear answer. If I were to poll 20 college football fans, I'm going to probably get 20 different answers. And that's primarily because with Bryce, we don't know definitively if he's the starter. That's what I'm working off, because Mikey Keene currently is dealing with some lingering injuries. It seems like Bryce is leading the way in terms of the quarterback battle in fall camp. He's had some really good moments. He's also had some shaky moments overthrowing the football. I mean, he is a uber talented player. We're talking about a guy with the frame of a guy like Cam Newton, and I am not one to make a comparison to Cam Newton, but that's just what it is. He has the arm talent of him, but he seems to be a little bit more fluid in how he's able to move. I'm obviously basing this off of high school tape, but that's all I can work off of. I'm not going to base it on anything I saw in that spring game. So going from where Michigan was in 2024, they had arguably one of the worst passing offenses I've ever seen. The reason why I'm drafting Colston Loveland in all my fantasy football leagues is for the fact that he produced in just one of the worst quarterback situations I've ever seen. Alex Orji was a fullback cosplaying as a quarterback. Alex Warren was egregiously bad. Egregious. Like he's not a good quarterback. And this is no disrespect to him. I think he would tell you that he did not meet to what his capabilities should have been last year, and they still were winning football games. Mind you, they ended the year beating Ohio State. They ended the year beating Alabama, who did not have a lot of players sitting. It wasn't like Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams were just sitting on the bench. No, they played the full game, and they were still able to win. I have so much respect for Sherrone Moore and how they finished last season. But the problem with that, very similar to, I would say, like the Florida situation or the South Carolina situation, where you go on a heater to finish the season, and that is the last thing you saw from this program. And so you have now convinced yourself that it's just going to continue. Now, there is cases where that happens, but there's also just as many cases where they kind of stutter a little bit. The gear doesn't click as soon as you want it to, especially to start the season. And I go back to the point of what I was talking about when we were speaking on Oklahoma and their expectations. Going into Norman week 2 with a true freshman quarterback, no matter how talented they are, is a challenge. I mean, fifth-year seniors struggle against a Venables defense because of the complexities of what he shows. And then what he shows and then what actually happens. I think of so many times where I've seen Venables put a middle linebacker about 5-10 yards around the line of scrimmage. He looks like he's just going to be sitting in a soft zone. And then all of a sudden, as soon as the ball is snapped, he's dropping 25 yards down the deep middle and is playing a safety role. And Jalen Milroe damn near throws a pick to him. You have to understand what you're seeing and be able to react to what changes, because Venables is very good at that. He is very exotic with his blitzes. He is very dynamic as a defensive play caller, to which he is now taking full control of. And this is just one game, but it's like one of those things where it is a very tall task. And what happens if Bryce wins that game? What happens if Michigan wins that game to something that they are very capable of? They have Justice Haynes at running back, the transfer from Alabama. It seems like from fall camp and a lot of things that we're reading that their wide receiver room might be the most dynamic that they've had in years. I still think there's steps to go because it was really, Roman Wilson and friends. But it sounds like some of the returns from camp that their wide receiver room is good. Their offensive line, I'm never really going to have any challenges about their offensive line being poor because they just have a continuous funnel of not having star NFL guys, but like guys that are good as a cohesive group, and they're very solid. I mean, that's how they won a lot of games, was very good run blocking. And then the defense with Sharon Moore, you know, I had my questions about him as a head coach, and I'm sitting here and I'm going, you know, what is Sharon Moore without X, Y, and Z? And we saw that last year and it was up and down, but then you saw it all kind of click, and everyone that talks about Sharon Moore has glowing reviews about him. So like my questions are really getting pushed to the side, and it starts to point back to a guy like Underwood. It always points back to the quarterback. That's what we're doing here, talking about college football. 9 times out of 10, it goes back to the quarterback. And imagine, like, I think the best analogy of what the hype train would be with Bryce potentially beating in Oklahoma would be on the scale of when Colorado beat TCU a couple years back, when Deion's first game, a game that I was actually at. I still have the roster of Colorado football for their very first game. It was a heater. I remember getting sunburnt to the 10th degree. I looked like Bob the freaking tomato. It was that bad. But it was electric. And that was just the start, because as soon as I got on my phone and I'm driving back, it was a hype that I have not remembered seeing in a very long time. Like maybe since 2019 LSU. Bryce Underwood and the Michigan hype train would get very real. So I'm telling you what the top end side of it is. And then the low side is, what if they go like 7-5? I'm trying to figure out where the middle ground is. And I think the analogy that I would use to best represent my expectations for Bryce Underwood, someone that I think is a potential number 1 overall pick, one of the best high school prospects I've ever seen for the quarterback position, Dylan Raiola in his first year. Because they had Jeff Sims in 2023. You bring in this 5-star quarterback. The passing offense was so bad, you almost look around and you say, anything's better than what we just got. And even if it's a true freshman quarterback, Dylan Raiola is at least going to be better than Jeff Sims passing the football, putting it in harm's way, not being able to complete the easy things. And I think the same thing for Bryce Underwood. Sure, you don't have Loveland. That really hurts. But at the end of the day, what you had and what you are at least getting with Underwood, if he can just do the simple things, and by simple, do the layups of the RPOs, the quick outs, the things where you're just trying to get the ball into a playmaker's hand. I'm not saying going from 1 to 2 to 3. I'm saying just go 1 or run. Very simple stuff that I think that they are going to put him in the best position to succeed in. I expect probably 8-4, which is insane to do for a true freshman. But I think the foundation is so strong with Michigan, barring any of the, challenges that they've had with sign stealing. Apparently, it almost feels like one of those things where, like Ben Simmons, when he was going to get traded for months and months and months on end, it's like one of those things where I'm just continuously waiting for the punishment from the NCAA, whatever this is going to look like, whatever vacated wins they're going to probably pull out for Michigan. I'm assuming that things just run pretty normal. Like this has been talked about for way too long that I've honestly lost interest. I think Bryce is going to be pretty good. I would expect maybe 19, 20 plus touchdowns. Like I'm not one to predict, the statistics or anything, because I think it could be a little wishy-washy on that front, but I would say 8-4, you win some of the big games, and maybe you knock Ohio State off again. I mean, you were able to do it with Warren, man, and Orji coming in for just QB power plays. You knew they were not going to throw the football with him at quarterback. It was some of the wildest things I've ever seen to finish last year. I mean, if you were someone that betted on Michigan football, I'm sure you are chilling pretty comfortably in this upcoming offseason.